Hi, welcome to Dr. Joe Academy reading and writing class. Just to make sure you can hear me as well as see the Google Slides presentation, can you please type 1 in the chat? Okay, and let me go ahead and send in the link so everyone can join into the Google Slides. Okay, we'll go ahead and we'll get started with the vocab. Austin, can you go ahead and read the first word?
Extrapolate, verb to use known facts as a starting point and then draw conclusions about something unknown. To estimate by examining unknown values that fall outside a range of known variables. Crime scene investigators are known for their abilities to extrapolate information about victims' last hours based upon forensic evidence.
Okay, and Kevin, can you go ahead and read the second word?
Facet. Noun. A component, dimension, or aspect of one of several parts. In order to do well on the history exam, they had to study all facets of the Civil War and in the antebellum period.
Yeah. Okay, and just to make sure over the last word over here, antebellum period. Okay, and Kevin Sue, can you go ahead and read the third word?
Facetious, adjective, intended to be humorous but often silly or inappropriate, playful and communicated in jest. That which is frivolous or really humorous is facetious. Parents are being facetious when they suggest that children whining about being bored should go play in traffic.
Okay, great. And Liam, can you go ahead and read the last word?
Facilitate. Verb, to help along in order to make something easy or easier to do. To decrease resistance in order to ease the flow of information or the progress of someone or something. Web-based reservation systems facilitate the making of personal travel and vacation plans, diminishing the need for travel agents.
Okay, great. And let's move on to the activity. Write a sentence using each of the following words. Make sure to include enough context. You can also write it in the form of a paragraph. You can also write it in the form of a paragraph oriented around the same topic. And okay, let me just resend in the link. I think it's because I changed the settings after I sent in the link, but let me check over here just to make sure. Yeah, everyone should be able to access it. Please try again with the new link that I just sent into the chat. That should definitely work out. Okay, and I do want to make sure everyone here has slides as well before we get started. Okay, just to differentiate, I'll just put an X for the last name and let me just make sure. Okay, yeah, we should be good. All right, before we get started with the sentence writing activity, does anyone have any questions about the activity itself or any of the 4 words we took a look at? All right, right now the time is about 7:05. We'll work on this until 7:10. Right now, I'll stay on the first slide. Halfway through the activity, I'll switch onto the second slide. But if anyone does want me to switch back and forth, please let me know. But it is definitely recommended that you're directly on the Google Slides. And again, if anyone has any questions at any point, feel free to ask me. Okay, let's proceed with the take-up for this activity. I did start receiving some responses, so I'm just gonna paste them in over here. Kevin, I received your response at 7:07, but only one of the words.
I accidentally pressed it.
Okay, yeah, no worries. Okay, yeah, you could go ahead and send it in completely when you're done, and the rest of you can also go ahead and start sending in your responses. Okay, and Liam, can you go ahead and read your response?
People are extrapolating information about the universe. There are many faucets in our history book. My friends are being very fastidious. Scientists are still trying to facilitate how the universe works.
Okay, great job with your response. I just want to go over some corrections. So facets was spelled incorrectly. This word, the third word is pronounced facetious. And then for your last sentence, I do want to go over some corrections. It should be scientists, plural, not possessive. Also, facilitate is misused. You can use understand or decipher here for better. And yeah, that was the main correction I wanted to make in terms of that. Okay, and let me paste in the next response. Okay, Kevin, can you go ahead and read your response?
Extrapolate. The detective used extrapolate information to find out who had stolen the diamond. Facet. Geometry is one facet of math. Facetious. My facetious friend got in trouble during class. Facilitate. The ordering tablets at the restaurant facilitate ordering.
Okay, so yeah, just beyond the spelling mistake over here, just a missing E, detective. We also have just a mistake with the first word. The detective used extrapolate information to find out who had stolen the diamond. That would not be correct. Instead, the detective used extrapolation to find out who had stolen the diamond. So just how you use the word correctly, how you use the word has to be changed for the sentence to be correct. Okay, and let me paste in the next response. Okay. Austin, can you go ahead and read your response?
We can extrapolate how many books we read this year by looking at how many we read last year. One important facet of being a good friend is always being there to help. But he made a facetious joke during the discussion. Everybody looked confused. The teacher used games to facilitate learning and make the lessons more fun for the students.
Okay, great job, Austin. All of the words here are used correctly. And yeah, there's no corrections over here. Great job. Okay, and Nathan, can you go ahead and read your sentences?
James extrapolated information website. To do that, he needed to know all the facets about hacking. It was facetious to get caught. The second later he broke in. He did not get facilitated by the FBI.
Okay. All right, so we do want to go over some corrections over here. Just give me a second. All right, so 3 of the words here were used incorrectly. First, extrapolate doesn't fit here. Consider extracted instead. Facetious doesn't fit here. A better word for, okay, I just want to keep the first sentence in as well. But a better word for this would be ironic or amused. Facilitated, again, is misused. A better word is considered help or assisted. So how you use the words here, like it just doesn't fit in the context of the sentences. I do see what you mean when you say facilitated. It seems similar to helped or assisted, but if we go back to over here, to help along in order to make something easy or easier to do. The decrease in resistance in order to ease the flow of information or the progress of someone to something. So instead, you could write the FBI facilitated whomever with information to help regards to a case. So something a little bit more specific would make sense. So trying to not be too general because that's when the words end up being used incorrectly. So let me just highlight this in red over here. Okay, and okay, Kevin, I did not receive your response. It is 7:16. Please make sure you're participating for the next activity. We're moving on to and Kevin, I just wanted to check in to see if you did work on anything. Do you have anything ready to give in?
Well, I did I did two.
Yeah, can you just send in what you have done so far? Okay, Kevin, can you go ahead and read your response? Kevin, can you go ahead and read your response?
The museum exhibit highlighted the many facets of ancient Egyptian culture, from art to daily life. His uh, his facious remark about the teacher's new hairstyle made everyone laugh, though it wasn't taken seriously.
Okay, great job. So the only correction I would want to make here is many facets of ancient Egyptian culture. And then I'm just going to write over here, try and rate 3 out of the 4 words for next week. So you have a goal of writing 1 more sentence within the given time. All right, so we're just going to start off the next part with a lesson on literary devices, which will bring us into a creative writing activity. We're specifically taking a look at metaphors as well as similes. Yes, I wanted to make sure. Remember, metaphors and similes. So we're looking at both of them and looking at the differences and similarities between them and looking at why they are their own 2 literary devices. And then, of course, we'll be writing with them. Yeah, we'll be writing with them in our creative writing activity. So let's start off with metaphors. A metaphor is a figure of speech that describes an object or action in a way that isn't literally true, but helps explain an idea or make a comparison. Here are the basics. A metaphor states that one thing is another thing. It equates those 2 things, not because they are actually the same, but for the sake of comparison or symbolism. If you take a metaphor literally, it would probably sound very strange. Are there actually any sheep, black, or okay, my apologies. I think I was having some issues with my mic. Sorry, thanks, Nathan, for letting me know. Okay, if you take a metaphor literally, it will probably sound very strange. Are there actually any sheep, black or otherwise, in your family? Metaphors are used in poetry, literature, and any time someone wants to add some color to their language. If you're a black sheep, you get cold feet, or you think love is a highway, then you're probably thinking metaphorically, because literally none of these would make sense. These are metaphors because a word or phrase is applied to something figuratively. Unless you're actually a sheep or dipping your toes in ice water, chances are these are metaphors that help represent abstract concepts through colorful language. Definition and examples. Those are the uses of metaphor, and this is the official definition. A word or phrase for one thing that is used to refer to another thing in order to show or suggest that they are similar. An object, activity, or idea that is used as a symbol of something else. Metaphors are a form of figurative language, which refers to words or expressions that mean something different from their literal definition. Think close to even irony. Irony is really similar to a metaphor in the idea that what is said is not exactly meant. And I'm hoping everyone remembers our lesson last week about the 3 different types of irony: situational, dramatic, and verbal. In the case of metaphors, the literal interpretation would often be pretty silly. For example, imagine what these metaphors will look like if you take them at face value. Love is a battlefield. Bob is a couch potato. Baby, you're a firework. Or I am titanium. Okay, and let's see. All right, Kevin X, can you go ahead and read this slide?
Metaphors show up in literature, poetry, music, and writing, but also in speech. If you hear someone say, metaphorically speaking, it probably means that you shouldn't take what they said as the truth, but as more of an idea. For example, it's final period, and after exams, students are saying things like that test was murder. It's a fair guess they're still alive if making comments about the test, so this exam was speaking metaphorically or figuratively. Metaphors can make your words come to life, or in the case of an exam, to death. Often, you can use a metaphor to make your subject more relatable to the reader or to make a complex thought easier to understand. They can also be a tremendous help when you want to enhance your writing with imagery. As common figure of speech, metaphors turn up anywhere from novels and films to presidential speeches and even popular songs. When they're especially good, they're hard to miss.
Okay, so these are some famous metaphor examples. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. This is from William Shakespeare. Another one, America has tossed its cap over the wall of space, John F. Kennedy. Chaos is a friend of mine, Bob Dylan. A good conscience is a continual Christmas, Benjamin Franklin. You ain't nothing but a hound dog crying all the time, Elvis Presley. Okay, metaphors versus simile. Similes are like metaphors, but metaphors aren't similes. A metaphor makes a comparison by stating that one thing is something else, but a simile states that one thing is like something else. If you're trying to tell the difference between metaphors and similes, the more obvious comparison and similes make them easier to identify as figures of speech. While someone might actually think that Elvis Presley has a hound dog who happens to be particularly noisy, imagine if his lyric went, "You're like a hound dog," or "You're as whiny as a hound dog." In these cases, Elvis would be using a simile, which makes it a bit clearer that he's not actually singing to a sad puppy. But on the flip side, the rhythm wouldn't be quite as catchy. So these are some examples of a simile. The best way to tell is in a simile, a comparison is made using either like or as. Example, she's as cute as a button. It's like shooting a fish in a barrel. He's as nutty as a fruitcake. Ogres are like onions. So what we see over here is like, as, like again over here, and as. So either or has to be in there for it to be a simile. It's not like maybe if it's in there, it's a simile. When we do see like or as being used to make a comparison, we know it's a simile and not a metaphor. So that's the easiest way to tell the difference between the two. And even when writing your own, you have to make sure you use either of these words while making the comparison. Okay, let's take a look at implied metaphor. Liam, can you go ahead and read this slide?
Implied metaphor. Here's a tip. Implied metaphor departs from the thing A is thing B formula and allows you to make a more sophisticated and subtle type of comparison through, you guessed it, implication. Take these 2 sentences. Example, Jordan got his courtship cues from the peacock. In a room full of ladies, Jordan simply fans his feathers. In both sentences, we are comparing Jordan to a peacock. Per sentence, the comparison is over The peacock is mentioned directly, but in the second sentence, he implies that Jordan is the peacock, like comparing his behavior, fanning his feathers, to something peacocks are known for doing. This isn't meant to suggest Jordan actually has his feathers, but that he is behaving in a showy and flirty way to catch the attention of the ladies.
Okay, and Austin, can you go ahead and read this slide?
Sustained metaphor. Here's a tip. A sustained metaphor is carried through multiple sentences or even paragraphs because it is used and developed over a longer section of text. A sustained metaphor can be a powerful literary device that provides strong, vivid imagery in the reader's mind. This kind of metaphor is often found in songs and poetry. In a famous example from Shakespeare, Romeo compares Juliet to the sun over several lines, but soft. What light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief. Kind of puts your my sunshine to shame.
Okay, and Nathan, can you go ahead and read this slide?
Dead metaphor. Without a good living metaphor, you can get that fun mode of thinking about what it looked like if Elvis were actually singing to a hound dog, for example. But with a dead metaphor, the original image has already receded into the background. Using too many dead metaphors will cause the reader to lose interest. Reach a little further for an original or think about ways to use familiar metaphor in an unconventional way.
Okay, and Kevin, can you go ahead and read this slide?
How to come up with a metaphor. You don't need anything but your imagination to come up with a good metaphor, but some added flair can go along with. Remember, metaphors often represent something that is hard to take literally. Think of the metaphor rule with an iron fist as an example. Out of the world of George R. Martin Game of Thrones, it would be a bit difficult to find a person with an actual hand made of iron. However, we are still able to interpret that metaphor as meaning someone who is hard and heavy-handed on governance. Governance. Here's a tip. When you're coming up with your own metaphor, stick up concepts that that people are familiar with, but won't necessarily associate with a person. Here's a simple example.
Okay, so this brings us into our creative writing prompt. The prompt is really simple. Again, it's really up to you. You can even choose to write about your own topic if you want to. It doesn't have to be this one specifically. The topic here is lost in a foreign city where they don't speak the language. Your character uses a translation app to get around, but constantly runs into problems. Include an example of simile and a metaphor in your writing. Be prepared to identify and explain the use of the metaphor and simile. So you don't have to identify it within your writing, but rather after you're done reading, I would ask you to identify both examples, similar to what we did last week with the 3 types of irony, and you would just identify it and explain why it benefits your writing. So right now the time is about 7:30. We'll work on this activity until 7:45. Before we get started, does anyone have any questions about our lesson or the activity that we have to work on? Okay, I'll be checking in halfway through the activity as well. But if anyone does have any questions at any point, feel free to ask me. Okay, I just wanted to check in to see if anyone had any questions. All right, just a reminder, in 7 minutes, we will be taking up this activity. Okay, the time is about to be 7:45. Can everyone please finish up with their responses and start sending it in or pasting it onto the slides? Okay, I still haven't received any responses in the chat. Please make sure you're sending them in. Nathan, can you go ahead and read your response?
A wandering and homeless man found himself in a village with a language that he didn't know. He used his Google Translate, but it always has an error. Translating it was as easy as breaking concrete with fists. Then he bought some of the fruit from the shops. He didn't have the currency, so he gave them tea leaves from the forest. The fruit was a dessert place. It tasted so good for him. After years, after some years, he learned the language and could live with those people. He lived a fun-filled life.
Okay, I do want to go over some small points of improvement. Give me a second. Starting off with in terms of your metaphor. Okay, yeah, let me just paste this in. Everyone else, please make sure you are sending in your responses. I do want to make sure we have enough time to take up everything. All right, so metaphor, the fruit was, okay, let me just copy this and paste on another slide. Okay, metaphor, the fruit was a desert place. It's confusing. Instead, you could write the fruit was an oasis. That would be a metaphor. In terms of grammar and clarity, he didn't have the currency, so he gave them tea leaves from the forest. Without currency, he traded for forest tea leaves. That is a much better sentence. The first one just seems a little bit redundant and it kind of reduces the flow of the story. It tasted so good to him. It tasted so good for him. It sounds kind of awkward in that sentence. Instead, you could write something as simple as it tasted delicious. In terms of tense consistency, stick to one tense, past or present, right? And okay, let me paste in the next response. Okay, Kevin, can you go ahead and read your response? Kevin, can you go ahead and read your response?
Maya stood on the crowded street corner, feeling as out of place as a fish out of water. The city around her buzzed with life, but all the sounds of signs were in a language she couldn't understand. She pulled out of her translation app and typed, "Where is the nearest train station?" After a few seconds, the app displayed a string of words that made no sense at all. She showed it to a nearby passenger, but the person just smiled and spoke rapidly in another language, leaving Maya more confused. The city felt like a giant puzzle, its pieces scattered in front of her, and no matter how many times she tried to fit them together, something was always wrong.
Okay, really good job with your response, Kevin. The metaphor and the simile, I do see them over here and they are used correctly. And yeah, everything here is great as it is. I just want to yeah, in terms of clarity and flow, there's just one sentence that you can make a little bit better. The interaction with the passerby is clear, but slightly wordy. You can streamline it for better pacing. Instead of writing, she showed it to a passerby, but the person just smiled and spoke rapidly in another language, leaving Maya more confused. You can write, she showed it to a passerby who smiled and responded in rapid fire speech, deepening her confusion. So that one sentence over there, I would just change that. But other than that, great job with your response. Okay, Liam, can you go ahead and read your response?
I would run through the tunnel as three people chased me. I would soon lose them, but I would also arrive in a mysterious city. In this city, there were all types of people, animal humans, reptile-like humans, and many other kinds. I would soon realize that these people speak a different language. In their world, numbers were the words, and words were numbers. This world was the exact opposite of our universe. I would soon go deep in the city, and I would hear my stomach rumbling. I would then ask the nearest person where's the closest and best tasting restaurant is nearby using my translator. He would respond by saying the nearest restaurant is 3 blocks down and it would feel like heaven. At first, I did not know what he was talking about, but then I finally found out that he meant the food was so good that once you would take a bite, it feels like heaven. I would soon arrive at the restaurant and sit at a nearby table. Then a person would suddenly sit right in front of me and ask how my day was. I would respond that I got chased by a bunch of monsters. He would mistakenly think that I chased by goblins, but I would explain that the people who chased me were very inhumane and like monsters. He would then tell me how that he now understands and we would both finish our meals.
Okay, great job with your response. I do want to just go over some points of improvement. Okay, so in terms of simile and metaphor, I feel like like Liam, can you point out your simile and metaphor just so I could kind of get a clear idea of it?
I think my metaphor is like where it says like the monster. I would respond that I got chased by a bunch of monsters. And I think my simile is where it's like in heaven, like where the person says it would feel like heaven.
Okay. Okay, so the only thing is in this context, it really doesn't feel too clear. So we do need a comparison to be made with a metaphor or a simile. And here it feels like that comparison is kind of lacking. So no clear simile or metaphor is present in the story. Add one to meet the assignment requirements. For example, you can write something like the city buzzed with energy, its streets alive like a symphony of chaos. In terms of clarity and grammar, num in their world, numbers were words and words were numbers. It should be where should instead of where. And then in terms of clarity as well, this world was the exact opposite of our universe. That would just make it a little bit more easier to understand. So consider elaborating on how it's opposite to make the concept more vivid. So add a little bit more details, give us a little bit more background information in regards to that. Okay, and okay, Kevin, can you go ahead and read your response?
Leo landed in EFW as a flight attendant. Leo was moving to the United States from China. He was going to attend college, then save up enough money to bring the rest of his family to the U.S. However, he didn't understand a word of English. In fact, the person sitting next to him muttered that he was as foreign as an alien. After getting dropped off from his Uber, he immediately got dropped off in the wrong location. Desperately, he began asking people, but I couldn't understand him, so he used the translation app. But when he showed people the translations, they looked at him confused. He then tried changing the order of the words, but still, people were looking at him with a confused look on their face. Finally, after walking for hours, he walked into the melting pot of Asians in the city. There, he found another native Chinese speaker who led him to his dorm.
Okay, great job so far. I just want to go over some points of improvement. Starting off with the metaphor, it's missing a clear metaphor. Add one to enhance the imagery and depth of the story. You can write something like the city felt like a maze, its streets twisting and churning without rhyme or reason. And it would be the second part, like that kind of adds on to the metaphor. And then in terms of your, okay, I just want to go over one more thing. Give me 1 second. Oh, yeah. I would change the phrasing of just one portion over here. Just because it seems a little bit awkward in the way you write it. Instead, you could write, instead of the melting pot of Asians in the city, it should be rephrased to a vibrant neighborhood teeming with Asian culture, or something similar along the lines of that. Okay, and Austin, let me go ahead and paste in your response. Okay, Austin, can you go ahead and read your response?
As Mia wandered through the crowded streets of the foreign city, she felt like a fish out of water. She pulled out her translation app, hoping it would be her lifeline. But every time she typed a phrase, the app gave her strange results. When she tried to ask for directions to the nearest cafe, it translated her request to something about cooked chicken. It was as if the app was a mischievous trickster, leading her in circles instead of guiding her. Just when she thought she had found a way, she ended up in a tiny alley that looked like it belonged in a scary movie.
Okay, great job with your response. The simile and metaphor I do see over here, and they are used correctly. Okay, the only thing I would add on is maybe in terms of improving your imagery further, you can further describe the alleyway in just a little bit more descriptive of an element. So the alley description is good, but it can be more immersive. So you can add sensory details to hide in the atmosphere. For example, you can write something like the tiny alley was dimly lit, with shadows stretching like ghostly fingers across cracked walls, and the faint smell of dampness lingered in the air. So again, like this would just be to take your story to the next level, but in terms of the metaphor and simile, great job. Everything there is used correctly. Okay, so let's move on to the next activity. we're just taking a look at character archetypes. So we're just going to read through about different elements that make up different types of characters. And then at the end, we'll be doing an activity where we write about which one of these character archetypes best suit us. And you would use information from the slides as well as real life to support your answer. Okay, Austin, can you go ahead and read the first slide?
Innocents are the exemplars of optimism and will always be kind and trusting. This means they help make the world as a nicer, brighter place, but that they may sometimes need a reality check when their rose-tinted glasses cloud their vision of the truth. Every person believes that everyone is equal and that everyone belongs. They are honest and hardworking, but may create resistance if a leader tries to take the reins.
Okay, and Kevin, can you go ahead and read this slide? Kevin, can you go ahead and read this slide?
Hero. The hero is one who aims high and demonstrates discipline, focus, and courage. They inspire those around them, leading teams to victory. But their uncompromising mentality can lead to burnout and even aggression. Caregivers are responsive, consistent, and trustworthy. They are natural parents, offering an ear, a handful, and a shoulder to those who need. However, their support could grow excessive, leading to martyrdom and dependency.
Okay, and Kevin X, can you go ahead and read this slide?
Explorer, trailblazers. Explorers don't like to follow the map. They prefer to see what's off the edge of it, often with a childlike curiosity and enthusiasm. They like to set their own agenda, but their unilateral, whatever I lay my hat attitude can make it hard for them to fit in with others. Lover, natural artists and connoisseurs. Lovers delight in giving all five senses the experience of a lifetime. They believe money is there to be spent on the good things, but can be overly susceptible to flattery.
Okay, and Liam, can you go ahead and read this slide?
Revolutionaries believe rules are made to be broken and the status quo is there is to be challenged. They can bring true innovation and real change. They might leave some damage in their wake. Creators combine art with science, finding fluidity in order. They believe that inventions must both be beautiful and functional. Take this too far, however, and creators risk becoming mired in the frustration of their own pursuit of perfection.
Okay, and Nathan, can you go ahead and read this slide?
Ruler are the rulers are the ones who naturally step into the lead and start giving orders, and everyone falls in line. They make things happen with the force of personality, but may put others' noses out of joint in doing so. Magician, big dreams and lead the magicians. They dazzle with their ability to accomplish the impossible and force those around them to adjust their perspectives. Doing the undoable takes great energy, and they may struggle to maintain levels of expectations and
Okay, and Austin, can you go ahead and read this slide?
Methodical and objective. Sages like to have all the information and take their time coming to the best evidence-based decision. They are smart to the point of nerdy, but their systematic approach may try to patience of those around them, and sometimes real life doesn't give us all the information we need. Jester, Jesters are innovative and outspoken, and people are drawn to their fun-loving attitude. They can take the pain out of life's hardest moments and lift us with a smile and a joke. Their downfall comes when times call for a bit more gravity and they may be judged tasteless or foolish.
Okay, and Kevin, can you go ahead and read this slide?
How do character archetypes work in literature? Character archetypes make characters authentic since they're based on real human behavior patterns. Arch archetype archetype make characters more interesting yet consistent. The best characters have unexpected archetypes within them. The presence of the archetype patterns keep the character consistent. Consistent. For example, you won't expect Harry Potter, a poor fragile orphan, to be a magician archetype, but it works. Knowing that Harry fits the magician archetype helped J.K. Rowling keep Harry's choices and behavior consistent.
Okay, and Kevin, next, can you go ahead and read this slide?
How do character archetypes work in literature? Character archetypes make characters authentic since they're based on real human behavior patterns. Archetypes make characters more interesting yet consistent. The best characters have unexpected archetypes within them, but the presence of the archetypal patterns keep the character consistent. For example, you wouldn't expect Sabrina, sweet, innocent high schooler, to be your hero/warrior archetype, but a creator of chilling tales of Serena would disagree.
Okay, so therefore, character archetypes often surprise us. So which archetype do you think would best fit you? So, as mentioned before, you're going to write about which one of these character archetypes best suit you. Explain why so. Use 2 to 3 examples to support your answer. I'm just going to actually make this use a minimum of 3 examples, so we do have an actual checkpoint. And of course, use information from the slides and your real life to support your answers. So again, if you choose one of these archetypes, make sure you use direct evidence from the descriptions and talk about how it closely relates to you. And this is where you would provide the 3 examples. So these 3 examples would come from your real life and your own personal experiences. We'll work on this activity until about 8:20. That way we have enough time to go over everything as well as for me to introduce the homework and the writing assignment. And yeah, that'll give us about 12 minutes to work on this. Before we get started, does anyone have any questions? Okay, if anyone has any questions at any point, feel free to ask me. Okay, just a reminder, it is about to be 8:20. Everyone can go ahead and start sending in their responses. Okay, Liam, can you go ahead and read your response?
From my point of view, I believe my character archetype is a hero. My character archetype should be a hero because I do swimming and I help my team train and I would encourage them while they are racing. In addition, I am also really good at math and skipped 2 years. We worked on a project and I led my team to create a meetup place so we could work together to finish our project on time because we were behind. This demonstrates a hero archetype because I'm a leader and usually motivates everybody to keep on trying. Furthermore, I set high goals for my swimming because when I was 10, I set a goal that I hope my 100 fly would be national top 15 in 2 years, and which would be really hard because many people will grow very tall and not more people would start swimming. This shows the hero attribute because I set high goals for myself and also lead people. With this, you can see why I believe my character archetype is a hero.
Okay, so let me just go over some points of improvement with your response. All right, starting off with clarity. Okay, we'll just paste this onto another slide just to make this easier. Okay, starting off with clarity and structure, break ideas into shorter, clearer sentences for better readability. Use transitions to connect thoughts more smoothly. In terms of your grammar and your word choice, you can rephrase certain parts for formal tone. The first sentence can be changed into I believe my character archetype is the hero because I swim competitively. And again, that just kind of better connects it. The word choice is also better over there. You can also avoid repetitive phrasing like this shows the hero attitude. Focus on the archetype traits. So highlight specific hero traits like courage, leadership, selflessness, and try to be more explicit in terms of that. Okay, but otherwise, great job with your response. Okay, and Kevin, can you go ahead and read your response? Kevin, can you go ahead and read your response?
The explorer archetype suits me because I'm always curious and love discovering new things. I enjoy learning about different places, people, and ideas. First, like an explorer, I like to step into unknown situations and see what I can find while I was trying something new, asking questions or thinking about things in different ways. I'm always looking for answers and new experiences. I feel excited when I can explore new topics and learn from them. I'm not afraid facing challenges along the way. The adventure of learning and discovering is what keeps me motivated.
Okay, great job with your response. I just want to go over some points of improvement, starting off with the clarity and flow. The sentences are clear, but they can be more concise. And to avoid repetition, you could look at certain phrases like new things, new experiences. That is a little bit more general. You could be more specific. And that brings us to the second point, where you can add a brief mention of how this archetype aligns with the elements examples from your life or from the slides for stronger support. So be more specific with the examples. Okay, and Kevin, next, can you go ahead and read your response?
The character archetype that best suits me is the ruler archetype. One example why is because I naturally step into the lead. For example, whenever a group project in class, I always take the lead and decide what we should do. I also give others orders and make sure they follow it. For example, when I'm working with somebody, I first tell them what they should do and make sure that they follow it. Finally, I make things happen with the force of my personality. For example, my personality is that I get mad easily if we do something wrong. This should probably make it so others will do better, which will give us to finish the task.
Okay, great job with your response. I just want to go over 2 points of improvement, starting off with clarity and flow. You can avoid repeating phrases, for example, multiple times. Oh, like for example, multiple times. You can also vary sentence structure for smoother flow. So this means how long your sentences are. Not all sentences need to be extremely long. By having a variety of sentence structures, you have a better overall paragraph. In terms of tone, you can also adjust the tone to sound more balanced and less aggressive. So instead of focusing on anger, emphasize motivation or accountability. Okay, and go ahead and paste in the next response. Okay, Austin, can you go ahead and read your response?
The character archetype that best suits me is the innocent because I always try to help others and believe in the goodness for people. For example, I often assist my friends when they need help with schoolwork or personal problems, showing that I care about them. I also try to stay positive even when things get tough. When a friend is feeling down, remind them of their strengths and encourage them to keep going. However, I also know that it's important to be realistic. So sometimes I give my friends a gentle reality check if they are being too overly optimistic about something. This mix of kindness, positivity, and a bit of realism makes me feel like the innocent archetype fits me well.
Okay, great job with your response. I just want to go over 1 point about the clarity and flow. The sentences are clear, but they can be more concise to avoid redundancy. Maybe even like phrases like positivity and a bit of realism, they can just be changed to overall sound better and have a more formal tone. But yeah, otherwise, great job in terms of your response. And Nathan, can you go ahead and read your response?
I think I'm a jester because I'm funny and can make good jokes. I can make sad people happy and increase happiness, but sometimes my jokes are not that funny.
Okay. All right. Good job with your response. I just want to go over, I mean, in general, like with this response, it is more important that you're a little bit more specific. So it's hard for me to give too much feedback based off this. Just give me a second. So let me just write over here. Make sure to use past time more effectively within the provided time. Much more should be written. So use more specific examples and refer to notes from the slides. Okay, I just want to quickly go over the homework and the writing assignment. So for the homework, review all materials and be ready for a quiz. If we have time at the start of class, we might do a quiz. Review the character archetypes. Write a short story using a metaphor and a simile. So that primarily refers to what we already worked on. If I did give points of improvement, which I did to everyone, you can go ahead and focus on those changes for all of your responses. In terms of the writing assignment, it's a short story assignment titled A Magical Reflection. So here you would write a 500 to 600 word fantasy story about a teen who discovers a magical object. This can be an object of your choice. This reveals their deepest insecurities as well as their desires. Here you would focus on character growth as they learn to confront their fears and redefine their sense of self. Your introduction should introduce your protagonists and their struggles. The body should show how the object affects their self-esteem by reflecting their doubts or potential Explore its impact on relationships, how it changes how they see friends, family, or rivals. Build tension as the protagonist becomes overly reliant on the object, leading to a pivotal realization. What's really important over here is, of course, literary devices is something that should be incorporated, but I'm not going to specifically ask for certain literary devices. You can use any from the ones you already know or from the ones we learned. But in terms of the lessons on character archetypes, I do want you to focus on that. Because again, this is a character-based story. So you can choose more than one of the archetypes, but make sure you focus on actually showing this and presenting this within your character. It doesn't have to be something as blatant as simple in writing, this character is like this. Rather, show it through their actions. For the conclusion of your story, resolve the story with the protagonist's growth. Do they overcome their insecurities, break free from the object's influence, and with a meaningful insight about identity or self-acceptance? In terms of your grading criteria, these are the questions that will be asked in terms of character development. Is the protagonist relatable and transformed by the end? Do they have some type of change from the start to end? In terms of plot and conflict, does the story have a clear arc and engaging tension? Imagery and creativity, are the fantasy elements vivid and original? And theme, does the story convey a deeper message about self-worth or identity? Okay, right now the time is 8:30. Before I end off class, does anyone have any questions about the homework or writing assignment? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and dismiss the class. I hope everyone has a great week ahead of themselves. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.